Welcome back, Troglodytes, to your daily dose of guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. Today we're going to learn about the 1977 true 25th anniversary Les Paul Custom. This is an exceedingly rare guitar. Very few people have heard of this birthday baby, because it gets overshadowed by its big brother, the 25/50th anniversary Les Paul. That is a super fancy guitar. I've done a bunch of reviews on those. They offered them in 4 different finishes, including wine red, natural, black, as well as tobacco sunburst, and it was like the epitome of an anniversary guitar that set the bar standing forth. It wasn't the first anniversary model, that belonged to the 20th anniversary Les Paul Customs in 1974, but they just got a little special inlay. I mean, these puppies, they had flame maple tops. They introduced the Series 7 pickups, which were coil splittable. Huge thing at that point in time. Super fancy 5-piece flame maple necks, Super 400 inlays seen for the first time on a Les Paul Custom, and a fancy headstock veneer. There's only one problem with that model though. 2550 stands for 25 years of the Les Paul and 50 years of Les Paul the man himself within the music business. But if the Les Paul was first introduced in 1952, and that thing didn't come out till 1978, they kind of fudged those numbers to make it sound great for the silver and gold anniversary of those two. So, sneaky little Guitar Center Hollywood did a limited edition run just for themselves. A true 25th anniversary Les Paul Custom, and this is that guitar. So it celebrates 1952 to 1977. So they custom commissioned approximately 50 of these guitars. A little bit more on that in a minute, but what makes these things special is the fact that they have an all silver finish. Now, if you end up falling in love with this color on a Les Paul Custom, you can get this finish later on in the 80s. The official color is called pewter then. But at this point in time, there was never a Les Paul Custom done up in this beautiful silver finish. And why did they choose silver out of nowhere? Because, once again, it's the silver anniversary of the Les Paul model. Besides the finish, there were 2 other key attributes of these guys. First off, take a look at your pickguard. It is hand engraved by Les Paul himself. I believe that information to be true because there's other people that have been able to back up that he signed these, but it's not 100% confirmed. But what I imagine is these things came to that Guitar Center showroom, and he was probably there for the people who had bought them. He potentially signed them there. Do keep in mind, only about 10 of these have ever surfaced online, and they all seem to have signatures in different locations, if they have one at all. Some of them appear to be more professionally embossed, others are clearly hand done, and some you can hardly even see that they were sketched into it. So the exact history as far as that is a little bit uncertain at this point in time. And that leads us to the next special feature. The defining feature for this particular model for me falls on the tailpiece. I can't tell you how many of these I've passed on because they didn't have the correct tailpiece on it. This is another one of those maybe not all of them got it type things, but it is engraved 25th anniversary. And you're going to notice this one has silver or chrome hardware. There were approximately 25 done up in chrome and 25 done up with gold hardware. None of those numbers are 1000% confirmed, it's just kind of speculation at this point, but it seems logical. It was the 25th anniversary, why not do 25 and 25? So as compared to the 25/50th anniversary Les Paul, this thing, it's kind of boring. It's just a regular Les Paul Custom in a brand new finish for that particular time period that no one had ever seen before. And Guitar Center liked doing these special metallic finishes because in 1980 they did a gold Les Paul Custom like this as well. Those guys have a special pearl plaque on the back of them. I have had one of those before too, but this one is definitely much more rare and more sought after by collectors. But despite just being a regular Les Paul, this actually represents something much bigger in my opinion. Because I'm hypothesizing that these true 25th anniversary Les Paul Customs actually birthed the Silverburst finish. Because you gotta think about it. This was born in 1977, and the very first prototype that we know of a Silverburst occurred also in 1977. So think about it. Guitar Center custom ordered 50 of these things. What's not to say that somebody said, hey, that looks really cool. What if we put a burst on it? And then bam, a huge cult classic finish is born. Thankfully, we have its serial number. It was born very early in October, whereas most of the other silver anniversary Les Paul customs date about 2 weeks later after the prototype, in very late October. But you also have to remember that is just when the neck was stamped, not necessarily when the guitar was completed. So even though the Silverburst has an earlier serial number, it does not necessarily mean that it was sprayed first. But I really believe it's because Guitar Center custom ordered silver Les Paul customs. Because think about it, they at least had the paint kicking around, it had to have given them the idea to put it on here. So you have this obscure anniversary model to thank for this beautiful finish. It wasn't a hit at first, but it's definitely became a cult classic with Adam Jones fans, Mastodon fans. I mean, heck, we actually have the Adam Jones signature Silverburst coming out here in about a month or so. So this thing pretty much birthed that. So in my opinion, it is a super special guitar for that reason. And just like how Silverbursts age a greenish gold hue, these guys do as well. Yeah, this used to be a silver 25th anniversary Les Paul custom. I actually purchased this one because it does not have the engraving on the pickguard, but it had the 25th anniversary tailpiece. But this guy, that was like in brand new condition, did not have the tailpiece. So it seemed unlikely that somebody swapped it out, but I wanted one true perfect example. So I bought this kind of beat up road dog one just to have a perfect one for this particular video. But here you go. This is the difference between aging. These are both the exact same models right here. So it's just kind of fun to have these things side by side to show you the differences in how they age as well. So that is the story of the true 25th anniversary Les Paul and why it is historically significant. Let's go ahead, throw it on the workbench and take an individual look at its parts and specs before we get to a playing demo. Inside the 25th anniversary Les Paul custom, let's see what we find. This was literally just a regular Les Paul custom that they took off the line. You can actually see it was initially intended to be a black one. Now, if you ever find a guitar that has a mix-match stamp as to what the color is, do not be alarmed. That does happen sometimes. What you're going to want to look for are common refinish signs. Like, you should not have paint all over your pickup cavities. If you do, it's likely been resprayed. So seeing this tells you that's the original silver finish. Now, I guess if somebody knows what they're doing with doing a fake, I guess then that gets a little bit tricky to tell, but it's just a short neck tenon and nothing too fancy. Cool story, the more aged one over there actually has that same black stamp in the neck pickup. But the pickups are just the era-correct T-tops that they were using in the day. It looks to me like somebody might have taken this pickup cover off at one point in time, but the bridge pickup looks a little bit better. Now you can actually see a very early date stamp right here. I believe it's late 77, early 78 when they start doing it right there, but then starting in later 78 and 79, they started to put it over top of the patent number right there. But here we can see maple top, mahogany body. So that'll likely be a 3-piece top on this. It's kind of hard to tell. I'm not seeing any seam lines showing through. And this is before weight relief, so this is a solid mahogany body. Likely 1 piece yet. Wow, now that I got that neck pickup out a little bit further, it was kind of tight. There's actually a little 25 right here. So maybe they did mark these in a special way for the 25th anniversary, or it's just a super coincidence because they also have a 40 over here. But as far as pickup readings go, middle position 3.78. This will be what, 7-ish? Yeah, 7.44, and the neck 7.69. So no, it didn't get the fancy Series 7 pickups, but honestly, I prefer these anyways. Moving on to the bridge, nothing too fancy with these guys, just your standard Schaller made in Germany parts. That's how you verify 70s and 80s Les Paul customs, it'll say made in Germany right there. But now let's get a good look at this. 25th anniversary. The whole reason why I bought that golden one over there, just to take it for this guitar. The stock one that was on this one, it was just a regular one of the era, so that does make me believe that not every single one might have gotten it, but at the same time, it's very plausible that somebody just replaced it at one point in time, because who wants 25th anniversary on their tailpiece, right? But for me, this is the defining feature of this particular model, because I don't believe Gibson's ever done anything like that again. For anniversary models anyways. They'll do anything you want when the made-to-measure program. But the condition of this one is just stellar. It looks like somebody might have tightened that at one point in time and kind of scratched up your poker chip. But your switch tip appears to be original. It's nice and creamy. And we'll just run the light along here. I mean, I was so blessed to find this particular example to document because it has very little wear. It's hardly aged at all. You got a small little ding right there, but it's not too bad. And then this tone knob has a very small chip. Now I could have replaced it with one of the ones from the golden one, but they were just a little bit more aged, so I decided, we'll just leave that one alone. I'll let the next owner decide if they want to hunt down a clean pair of 70s top hat reflector knobs, because those are original to the guitar. And now our pickguard. You can see it hasn't even aged under here, but let's take a closer look at this guy. And you can see how crude it is, and he liked to engrave things, so that's definitely him. I'm pretty darn sure of that. Personally, I prefer the ones that were signed down here, though, because, it's a little bit easier to display, easier to read, but hey, I'll take what I can get on this one. But moving on from the body, we get to the neck. You gotta remember, this is the maple neck era. You can see that right here in the truss rod cavity, and we have the typical ebony fretboard for a Les Paul Custom, and your mother-of-pearl block inlays. And you'll have 22 frets that are of the typical size of this era. They're not super tall, but they're wide. They are not fretless wonders. People call these things fretless wonders all the time. No, fretless wonder is skinny and flat, whereas these are wide and flat. So a little bit different. If you're used to modern fret wire, it's a little bit harder to bend on these, but once you get used to it, you're usually okay. But standard 12-inch radius with a 24 3/4-inch scale length. As far as neck specs go, our nut measures a 1.69 inches, which increases to 2.03 by the 12th. 70s typically have pretty small necks, so 0.81 at the first fret neck depth. And we're looking at 0.96 by the 12th. Sounds big, but these are not big necks at all. The face of the headstock's just such a beautiful sight on this one. I love getting really clean examples of 70s Les Paul Customs. This one's a true gem, but nothing too fancy here. Now for the 35th anniversary, they did a Les Paul Custom, and they actually put the engraving right there in the middle part of the custom emblem. I guess while we're talking about it, the 30th anniversary were actually gold tops, and they did another special inlay for those guys. But inside our truss rod cavity, once again, the maple neck, our truss rod's in great shape, but you see the initials PK. Now moving on to the backside. It's crazy to say this, but the best way to tell that a vintage guitar is by the smell. There's a very distinct scent to really clean condition late 70s guitars. But this is a beautiful untouched cavity, 1977 25th week. Nothing has been messed with in here. You even have those capacitors that you're used to seeing around 76, 77. And over here, you get that little sticker. Now, do not touch that sticker. That sticker will easily fall off. You usually only see that thing on the really clean examples. Take a look at all the oxidization or whatever it is on these screws. That's what keeps the metal shielding plate over top of them. But despite this guitar being really clean, if you look at it at an angle, you can indeed see some light buckle worming marks. This is not a perfect example. There might be slightly cleaner ones out there, but they will never show up for sale. So finding this, once again, it was just a treat. It was fantastic. This is a museum piece right here. And here is a look inside our toggle switch cavity. Now, if you look along the edges, you can see some finish checking lines starting over here, but thankfully there's none of that on the top yet. And that little crack line that you see along the binding, that's where the binding truly ends and the body begins. You'll see that on pretty much every Silverburst of these two, so it's kind of cool to see that on this one. But the sides are actually in pretty good shape on this one too, just some light nicks and dings. It is a little bit peculiar to see a plastic output jack plate. Typically, in this era, they're metal, because the other one has a metal one, but pretty much every single part on that thing's been replaced. And it looks like we have a little bit of a stand mark on that side. But these strap buttons are still original. Moving up the neck, depending on your angle, you can see the three pieces to the maple neck. It's easiest to see it on the headstock right here, and we've got the volute as is common on this era. But this neck is in clean shape. You've got like a little minor impression right here and maybe a small one right there, but other than that, very clean. And the tuners on this puppy, regular Gibson Schaller ones, but our serial number is 1977, 298th day of the year, 556 in production. So these aren't even special enough to be made in Kalamazoo. They just took them off the assembly line in Nashville. It would have been cool if they were kazoo customs, but nope. And since these were just regular Les Paul customs, there likely isn't even a prototype out there, because they didn't have to prototype anything special. Completely back assembled, it weighs 10 pounds, 13.3 ounces, so nearly an 11-pound monster here. Not that uncommon in this era, though. I was curious, so I decided to tear this one apart too to see if it also had that 25 stamp that I missed. Here you can see black, And yes, indeed, you can just barely make out a 25 stamp over here. It's got some paint over top of it, but it is there. So that's a cool little thing that we found. But something else interesting is it looks like it says like Jim Penny or Jim Penn, and then it has like 1977 through 1184 or something. So I don't know, maybe this was part of that guy's estate, or he just marked his guitars like that for how long he owned it. But I doubt that was factory, because this particular example, it's had pretty much everything replaced. Like the pickup rings likely have been replaced, the screws have been replaced. The pickups are still original, but somebody has definitely redone the covers because they're not quite as rounded as the vintage ones. You've got an error correct bridge, and I just put the other tailpiece that was on the mint condition one on this one, so still error correct. The pickguard has actually just been completely replaced. I mean, your plastics have pretty much been replaced on this one as well. The knobs are correct though. Your strap buttons have been replaced on this example too. Even your tuners have been replaced with error correct Schallers, but they're not the Gibson branded ones, so they don't have the correct style knob at the end. But deep down inside, this is also a 25th anniversary Les Paul. And this one was made 1977 on the 299th day of the year. So this was a very lately thought of thing. And it likely happened because Gibson's like, oh yeah, these things aren't going to come out on the correct year. So they probably just rushed ordered these things. So that way, in history, there was a true 25th anniversary guitar for the Les Paul. So let's go ahead, plug this thing in, and hear how it sounds. Now that we know all about the 25th anniversary Les Paul Custom, what are my final thoughts on this thing? Is it something for everyone? Definitely no. These things are expensive because of their rare limited edition nature and how desirable they are to collectors. So once again, if you love this color, just find yourself an 80s pewter custom. It's just about the same thing, except for then you'll also have Tim Shaw PAFs in here instead of T-tops. Because it really is just a regular Les Paul Custom with a few fancy attributes that are shrouded in mystery. If you're a serious hardcore collector, you will wait years and years for one of these things to show up. But how much are they worth? Are we talking like $25,000? I don't know, the market's kind of weird on these things. I mean, something like this is what every collector dreams of. So realistically, anywhere between 2 to 4 times what a regular Les Paul Custom would sell for, depending on condition, and all the little factors of, was yours signed by Les Paul, does it have the correct tailpiece or not, how badly somebody wants to add this to their collection, those all come into play on these guys. But I hope you troglodytes enjoyed getting to take an up-close look at this one. I've been waiting years to find the right example to do this video on. So let's go ahead and check it out under Blacklight before we say goodbye. Despite being rather clean, it definitely glows quite a bit under Blacklight. You can see somebody's sweat has slightly absorbed into the finish right there, and we'll probably see some of that stand rash along the edges as we were seeing on that workbench, but definitely nothing too bad on this particular example, that's for sure. You can't ask for a cleaner one of these to document. But just for fun, let's go ahead and check out that super aged one. There we go, it glows a little bit more. And just in case you're not familiar, it's not actually the finish that ages, it's the clear coat over top of it. It turns yellow. So if you were to take the clear coat off of this and refinish it in clear again, you could make it look brand new. But here you can see more sweat absorption, a little bit of lacquer wear. I mean, this one is definitely in a little bit of worse of shape as compared to the other minty clean one. And you also got a little bit of finish wear on the back there. But thankfully, none of these have any headstock breaks, cracks, or repairs. So what a great treat! You know, 2 out of 50 ever made, potentially. I like the way this one glows more. It's a little bit more ghostly, whereas this one's like a booger monster. As far as the original case on these guys, it appears that it could vary what you got, but it's always this style. You're not quite into chainsaw territory yet. They're very close to coming out, but not quite. And I believe the handle has been replaced on this one, but I kind of like it. It's a super chunky, beefy silver handle. It's an easy way to remember. Oh yeah, that's got that mint condition 25th anniversary guitar in here. But this one is a beautiful dark purple interior. It really complements that silver finish, that's for sure. Unfortunately, no fancy case candy. But the other more beat up one got a red interior case. I mean, technically this is what I would expect in this era, but it's possible the purple one was just kicking around. Because I associate these with more like early to mid 70s, but it looks fantastic with this finish. Troglodytes, I hope you enjoyed learning about the true 25th anniversary and getting to see it up close in person. I've been waiting a long time for this day, but now that's another one in the books. Thank you, Troglodytes, for tuning in today. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you tomorrow on the next episode. Take care.